Hello everybody, and welcome back to Independent Art Storytime. Today we're reading Chapter 7, first part of John Masefield's Box of Delights. Quick update for you, Kay and the Joneses have shrunk to a tiny size to sail their boats along the river, escaped from the bad guys, and they've just moored up. Let's find out what happens next. Chapter 7 of the Box of Delights. And now, Kay said, I vote that we have our pemmican and decide what to do next. At this moment, a little voice sounded from up above. Hello, you people, it said. Come indoors. There's going to be a shower, and you can have your feast in here. I'll let you down a cage to hoist you up. They then saw a little field mouse leaning over a platform which projected from the trunk of the elm. He'd had a little crane on the platform, and evidently he hoisted all his stores from the water by means of it. Presently, the little cage came dangling down from the crane, and the field mouse said, Not more than 2 of you at a time. Peter and Jemima got in, and the little mouse went to a winch and set the works going, and instantly the cage was up at the platform, and then the cage was sent down for Kay and Susan. Well, here we are, the field mouse said. Come in. He led the way from the platform into a corridor to a room with little windows which looked out upon the river. The floor was covered with dry leaves and moss, and the wall had lockers in it, labelled beech nuts, corn, pig nuts, best berries, second best berries, berries, assorted seeds, hazelnuts, honey, dried minnow, etc., etc. Well, now let's lunch, he said, and they all got out their provisions, pemmican, ham, and the rest. The field mouse told them where to look for other things. He produced some blackberry wine and some beech-nut loaves, which Susan toasted at the fire. While they were feasting in this happy way, they heard a great clumping noise outside. That's men, the field mouse said. They might be elephants, the noise they make. And almost at once, the men began to talk. Well, one man said, they seem to have got away from us. They must have come downstream and under the cover of the banks somehow. We'd have seen them if they'd gone upstream, because there aren't any banks. Well, another man said, if they got into the stream, the flood must have got them. And another said, well, if the floods have got them, then we've got to fish them out. Well, the first one said, there's nothing like little children for leading one a dance, the little devils. I thought we were making a mistake bringing both planes down and losing sight of them. You see, those little creatures have popped away into almost nothing. How would it be to look under the bridge there? One of them said. They'd have time to get to the bridge. Yes, the bridge is a good idea, they said, and then the voices and the footsteps moved away. When they'd gone, the field mouse said, Perhaps you'd like to see some of the wonders of the tree. We should love to see the tree, the children said, and the field mouse threw up a shutter in the wall, and the hollow behind the shutter was a little cage like that in which he'd hoisted them from the ships. You see, he said, I have a good many places like this. Chaps like me sometimes have to leave the room in a hurry. If I hear someone coming whom I don't want, you understand. I name no names, but there are several round here, uncertain sort of chaps, and you can never tell in a place like this which door they'll come in at. But now I've got this lift fixed, if I hear anyone suspicious, I nip into one of these places, and just step in here, will you? And I push the button, and up we go. The cage shot upwards. When it stopped, the mouse opened the door. See, it's a rather bare loft here, he said. If you will just come down to the window here, you'll be able to see down. And they looked out of the little window. They were amazed to find that they were right at the very top of the great elm tree. Close to them was a rook's nest. It looked like a mass of black timbers big as a church. And just beyond it, on a twig, was a rook swaying in the sun. His back, which was towards them, glistened purple. Dangerous chaps, those, the mouse said. I'll keep out of their way as a rule. Now just come this way. Now here, he said, is one of the slides. If you just let yourself go, you can't hurt yourself. Just slither down onto the moss. They slithered down and found themselves in another bare corridor, in which there was a strange droning noise, which the children took to be the wind in the boughs. There was a strong smell of honey in the air, and the mouse opened a little shutter and told them to look within to the hollow of the tree. They saw that within the tree there were a multitude of bees, which had almost filled the hollow with their honeycombs. And although it was winter, they were moving there, making the place drone like a thrashing machine. The place smelt as though all the summer was still there, with the lime blossom and bean blossom. "This is a fine place on a cold winter's night," the field mouse said, "curled up in a blanket and letting the bees drone you to sleep. And in any place you can get a draught of honey. Lots of the trees are blocked with very old honey, which the bees will never get to now. And of course here and there in this part of the tree there are woodpeckers, green and spotted. They're very nice people, of course. The rooks are very nice people too, very wise, but all these chaps have got rather a snappy way. They don't mean anything, of course, but once you get one good snap with those great beaks, I ask you, where are you? And then, oh, well, of course, then there are the jackdaws. Very odd chaps, the jackdaws. If you will look in the corner here, you will see the kind of things that they bring." In the corner, near an opening where a knot in the wood had fallen, there was a heap of stuff which sparkled. The children went to it and pulled the things over. There was a lady's little old gold watch, 2 rings set with brilliants, a pin with a fox's head at the top, a bit of quartz which gleamed, 2 scraps of Roman glass, iridescent from being in the earth for 1800 years, the red cut glass stopper of a bottle, a broken glass marble with a coloured spiral in it, a bit of brass chain, and a crystal set in gold. "They just bring these things in and leave them," the mouse said. "Queer chaps. But now, come on now. Before we come up the stair, you will see a sight." And they crept up a little stair and looked into what seemed like a cavern. Within the cavern just below them, a big white owl was perched, fast asleep, gurgling and growling. Peter dropped a bit of bark onto him, and he half opened an eye and gurgled back to sleep again. "He's the oddest thing around here," the field mouse said. "He's ever so old. He remembers when this tree was a sprig, and when the very good people were here. He makes my blood run cold, he's so old. But come on down, his place is a bit bony and birdy, and it's a graveyard of my relations, if the truth were known. I never come here except in winter," the field mouse said as he went down the little stair. "This is really the birds' quarter. In the season there'll be a matter of 70 or 80 young jackdaws in this tree, first and last, and about half that of young rooks, and they knock the place about and nothing's safe from them." He opened another little door, a trapdoor in the floor, and the children could see a long chute leading downwards. "It's perfectly safe," the mouse said, "if you just let yourself go. Nothing but weed and moss to fall onto, and you can't hurt yourself." And with this he let himself drop, and the children followed. "Now this," the field mouse said, as they got onto their feet in a strange room, "this is a part of the tree that's really worth seeing." The room in which they were had been a music room. There was a stage still set with music stands and tall music propped up, and against the wall there were old cellos and pretty little fiddles, a drum with the end knocked in, and parts of brass trombones. It hadn't been used for many years, and it was dusty and cobwebby. Now this, you see, is a part that was made by the very good people. They don't come here any more. "Do you mean fairies?" Susan asked. "No, very, very good people," the field mouse said. "Very clever, very beautiful and very wise, but they went away. It's a long time ago," the field mouse added. "I don't know the rights of it. It isn't wise to talk about those people, but of course everyone knows that they were very, very good." He led the way out of the music room to a beautiful staircase hung with tapestries and lit still with glowing lights. The staircase was carpeted with scarlet, and the banisters were beautifully carved with flowers growing on stems. The tapestries showed countless little people carrying coloured baubles to a queen of extraordinary beauty who sat upon a mushroom. "Now this place," the mouse said when they reached the foot of the stairs, "this place I don't quite like going into, but it's so beautiful I can't keep from it." He opened a big door, so that they pressed into a great room which seemed to fill the whole hollow of the tree. The walls were hung with banners and with portraits of extraordinarily brilliant people whose eyes seemed to move in with their painted heads. This room was lit like the staircase with a soft glowing light. It was carpeted with scarlet, and at the end of the room was a dais with a throne, and in front of the throne a table on which lay an ivory horn. Underneath the horn, written in letters of flame which flickered to and fro, were the words, "He that dares blow must blow me thrice, or feed the outrageous cockatrice." "Oh, I'd love to blow," Kay said, "but just to see what would happen. What is a cockatrice?" "Oh, don't," Susan said. "Anything might happen. A cockatrice is a fearful thing, like a cock and a cobra mixed." "Oh, I wouldn't touch the thing, sir," the field mouse said. "Oh, no, you mustn't think of doing that. Nobody's done that. Even the owl wouldn't dare to do a thing like that. Why, the fox wouldn't." "Oh, do blow it, Kay," Peter said, "just for a lark." "Oh, don't," the mouse said. "You don't know what they are. Of course they're awfully good people, very beautiful and very good and very, very clever and wise, but that's why I wouldn't like to hurt their feelings." "Oh, if they're beautiful and good and clever and wise," Kay said, "then their feelings wouldn't be hurt." "Oh, but you don't know," the field mouse said. "Remember, I'm not saying anything against them." And they could see that the mouse was a twitter with terror. But Kay picked up the horn, put it to his lips, and blew. He had a little practice of the blowing of horns. He had an old hunting horn that belonged to his father, and sometimes the police inspector let him try an old coach horn to see that he could blow without fear of splitting his lips. He blew once, and a strange noise as sweet as the silver singing of the stormcock came from the ivory. With a little twinkle and tinkle, the clack of all the frames fell from the portraits on the wall. The little mouse shrieked with terror and got underneath the table. Kay blew a second time. This time the note was louder and stronger. It was like the first calling of the cuckoo when he comes in April, and the children heard a sort of gasp of breath from the portraits on the walls, and all the figures of the portraits turned their head to look at Kay. "Oh, Kay, they're looking at you," Susan said. "Never mind," Kay said. The mouse had by this time got his head underneath the carpet. Kay blew a third blast, and at this all the lights in the room burned out 1,000-fold more brightly, and the blast of the horn became like the song of all the birds in June singing together, and the noise of the little silver bells that had hung on the sleeves of Herne the Hunter, and all this the beautiful people in the portraits stepped down into the room. The air became fragrant as though all the flowers and spice of the world had come together there. The glorious creatures formed in 2 lines. The portraits over the door by which they had entered the room were those of a king and a queen, and the children turned round. They saw this king and queen advancing through the company towards the throne, and they took their seats upon the throne, and all the company burst out singing. The children stared in amazement, for they had never seen such beautiful people as these. All were exquisitely lovely and so delicate and so soft. Some were winged, but all could move with the speed of thought, and they were clad in colours of the dewdrops and the sun. As they sang, countless other marvellous people of the sort thronged in through the doors, and at once they fell to dancing to music so beautiful and so moving that to listen to it was almost too great a joy. Some beautiful little men moved up to Jemima and Susan and asked them to dance. Beautiful princesses caught Kay and Peter by the hand and swept them into the dance, and as they danced they all seemed to understand what it is that makes the planets dance about the sun and the great stars keep their place in the constellations as they move forever in the heavens. Kay, as he danced, could not help the thought that the field mice might be a little bit out of it, but as he came round a second time he saw that someone had placed the field mouse in a corner near the band, where he was eating what looked like wedding cake, with hundreds and thousands on it. And when the dance ended, 7 exquisite little fiery horses came into the room and galloped round and round, and all those who cared could run after the horses and leap on their backs and dance upon them as they galloped, and leap from horse to horse. Kay couldn't resist these beautiful galloping horses, and he leapt into the ring with them and found that he could spring upon their backs and leap from horse to horse. Then presently the horses trotted out of the room and were gone, and then out of the ceiling little coloured flowers began to fall, and these the fairies caught as they fell and put to their lips. And Kay did as they did. A little white violet fell into his hand, and when he put it to his lips, it was as though all the honey and every sweetmeat he had ever tasted were pressed into his mouth at once. A joy thrilled through him such as he'd never known before, and then the king of the fairies said, "Friends, the long enchantment has been brought to an end. What can we do, Kay, who has ended it for us?" And the fairies didn't answer. The queen of the fairies said, "We will grant him the power to come again into fairyland one day in every year." At this moment, Kay heard again that heavy tread which had so disturbed him at lunch. "Kay's enemies," the king of the fairies said. At once the lights went out. The fairies vanished, and groping in the dark the children found each other. The field mouse with chattering teeth was saying to them, "Well, it ended all right, but I was never so scared, not even that time with the sparrowhawk." He groped his way to the trapdoor, which opened, and they slid back into his dining room, where they heard the voice of the man saying, "Well, it's no good waiting any longer. Wherever they've got right away from us. Now it's my belief that they've been in the mill the whole time." "How could they have been in the mill?" another man said. In all this mud their footprints would have shown. Inside the mill in all that flour their footprints would have shown too. They've beaten us, but I don't know how they beat us. I'm blessed if I can think." "I can't think," another said. "Abner won't be too pleased," another said, "when he hears the results of today. I told you one of the aeroplanes had better keep in the sky to observe." "Oh, you told us lot, didn't you?" the other voice said. "Blessed if I haven't got pins and needles all over me crouching there by the bridge," one man said as they moved off. "And I have," another said. "It isn't pins and needles," Susan said. "The fairies are pricking them. Look!" And indeed, down at the tree foot the children saw countless little fairies jabbing and tweaking the men. They looked like little fireflies darting to and fro in the great dark figures. "Blessed if we haven't got rheumatics waiting like this," a man growled. "Come on, we'll get home before we're paralysed." After this, the man hurried away. "I say," Kay said, "it's quite dark. Whatever time is it? I say, Mouse, I'm awfully sorry we've stayed too long." And by his watch it was 6:30. When they said goodbye, the field mouse opened the front door at the foot of the elm. The children joined hands, and Kay pressed the button of his box, and they resumed their shapes, fished out the boats from the hollow of the elm of the tree roots. "Come along," Kay said. "We better hurry." And that's everything from today.